welcome everyone, welcome to Le Wagon. My name is Boris, I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Le Wagon. And tonight's workshop will be about building layouts in CSS. So just a quick disclaimer, it's a workshop for someone who has already some basics in HTML and CSS. So I won't cover the really basics of HTML and CSS. And at the same time, I won't overwhelm you with too much information about CSS grids or Flexbox. My objective is more to give you a good general knowledge about layouts and the useful techniques to build the most common and the most popular layouts that you can find on a website. All right? So just to give you a bit the structure of the workshop, first we'll start to see together what exactly is a layout, what we mean when we speak about layouts. Then I will give you a bit of culture with real-life examples of different layouts that you can find on popular websites. So we'll see lots of them. And we'll discover that there are three different categories, main categories of layouts. There are some layouts structured by rows, okay, with different sections that are one on top of each other. There are layouts structured by columns. And there are layouts that are a bit a mix of the two other ones. And we'll call them the grid layouts. All right? And I will give you real-life examples for all these categories. And then the big part of the workshop will be to see useful techniques and code some of these examples. All right, so let's start right now. So before I give you some first elements on layouts, there is a small setup for this workshop. So I just show you so that you can do that yourself on your own when you're at home watching the video. But I've already prepared this setup. So basically, the content of this workshop, you can find it on the Le Wagon GitHub account. So if you go on github.com/lewagon, then there is a repository called Layouts 101, okay? And that's exactly the boilerplate I will use during this workshop. So actually, on the master branch here, you can download all the code that I will do tonight, all the solution if you want. And if you change to the boilerplate here branch, then you can download the starting point, what I will use just to start the workshop, okay? Without the code, just the starting point. So in my case, I already have downloaded this project, which is called Layouts 101 Boilerplate. So I just open it in Sublime Text so that we can see what's in the boilerplate. And also, I will launch a web server so that we can inspect the HTML file that we have to start with. Okay? So try to be with me. It will be an intense workshop, and I want you to be focused with me. So what do we have in this starting boilerplate? Let's start with simple things. Here, what do we find here? Come on, guys, wake up. Images, right? So I have a folder with some images that I will use during the workshop. So images of cities where Le Wagon is running a bootcamp, Barcelona, Berlin, the logo of Le Wagon, a bunch of avatar pictures of my two co-founders, Sébastien and Romain. All right, so I just have a bunch of images. What else here? Yeah, I've got a bunch of HTML files. And if you look, actually, every HTML file will be a different layout. So that's the 4 examples we will code tonight. First, we'll code a layout for a blog post. But I don't want to start from nothing because I would have to write all the content, and I want to save time. So instead of like starting with an empty file, I just start with a really simple one. So if I just open it in Chrome, let's look at this page. It's called blogpost.html. And for now, it's a stupid navigation bar, right, with a centered image. So this code is, where do we find the navigation bar here? Here, right? At the top of the page, it's just a div with a small CSS design, but really, you know, like 10 lines of CSS. And below, what do we have? Guys, what is it? Yeah, some really plain text content, headers and paragraph of text, right? So here, I will start with this one. And the objective will be to build the layout of a blog post. Okay? And for every example, I will start with a row structure, and then we'll have to build the layout together. So we have images, we have a bunch of HTML files, and what else do we have? Yeah, so we have a link here to the main style sheet, style.css. And if we inspect this main style sheet, normally you have some basics of CSS, so you can understand what it does. What does it do here? Yeah, it's just importing a bunch of Google fonts for swag, okay, so we have some nice font families. Then here it's importing a bunch of layout style sheets. And for now, these layout style sheets are empty, because that will be the design of every different layout. So we will have to code these style sheets, but for now it's empty. And if we go on the main style sheet, then here it's really simple. It's just a bunch of CSS to set up the background of the body, the font family of the body, the font family of the headers. And at the bottom of the page here, what do we have? Just the CSS to design the navbar with the centered logo, okay? So that's the starting point. There is nearly nothing in CSS. We have to code everything ourselves. Is it clear for everyone, this starting point? Okay. So now we can really move on to the topics of layouts. So actually, to your opinion, how do you define a layout? What's a layout? How do you define this in your own words? Yeah, so in French it's called like la mise en page. So basically it means the page structure, okay? The skeleton of the page. So actually you can watch another workshop that I did on our YouTube channel about building components. So components, when you speak about components, it's actually the elementary blocks of your user interface, okay? It's like kind of the Lego bricks of your page. So do you know components, like common components in a website? You have cards, such as the cards on Airbnb. You have buttons. You have avatar or thumbnails. You have forms, either a vertical form or horizontal form for search. And you have, for instance, tabs, tabulation for navigation. Okay? These are examples of components, which means the elementary blocks of your website. So this is the component, but then when we speak about the layout, this is the global structure of the page. All right? You can see that as the kind of skeleton of your page, and it's like a game. When you have the structure of the page, then you can just inject the components inside this layout, and you have a web page. Okay? So you have the global skeleton, and then you can inject the navbar in the top section. You can inject the tabulations here in the second section. You can inject a bunch of cards components in the content section, because you have the layout part, and then you just have to inject the components. Is it clear for everyone? So we will not code components, okay? It's another workshop. Here we want to code the structure of the page, which is for me the most the hardest part of the web page. Okay, so if it's clear, now let's speak about real-life examples of layouts, okay, that we can find on the popular websites. So what kind of layouts do you know? I will help you a bit. Let's start with the first category, which I call it the row layout. Okay? For me, it's just you have some rows that are just one on top of each other. What kind of example of row layouts do you know? Which one?
One page.
The one-pager or?
The scroller.
Yeah. So I call it the home page or the landing page if you want. Okay? The home page of a website is the typical example of a row layout. It's just sections, one after the other, and you have to scroll on the page. Okay? So if we look here it's the previous home page of Airbnb. We have two rows. Okay? One for the banner at the top of the page, and another one presenting the popular cities of Airbnb or whatever. Can you find another example? Do you know the website medium.com? Yeah, so what is another example of row layout? A blog post, right? If you look at a blog post, like this one is extracted from Medium, it's another example of basically sections that are scrollable, okay, one after the other. So here, a first section for the headers with the information about the author and the title of the blog post, then a banner with the background image, and then another section with the content of the blog post. Okay, another example of a row layout. Now, what about column layouts? There are lots, actually, it's easier for you to find examples because column layouts, for me, it's 95% of the layout you can find on the web. So there are lots of examples of column layouts. Can you give me a bunch of them? So which one? Which e-commerce? Amazon or something like that? Yeah, so I didn't give this one actually in my slide, but yeah, the e-commerce with you have some breadcrumb navigation, you know, the navigation with the categories of product on the left and then the page content with the result of the product on the right. So that's an example, yeah.
The Outlook web application.
So like inbox or?
Yes, the web application of Outlook. I mean, you have
yeah.
The columns.
So I give you other ones that are not that obvious. So this one, if you forget about the navigation bar, you forget about the filters and the navigation bar. Okay, it's just the main navigation. But then below, we typically have a 2 columns layout on Airbnb. First column with the results, okay? Second column with the map. So that's an example of a column layout. Even if then inside the layout we have a grid of cards on the left part, but the main structure is 2 columns, results and map. Okay? This is another example, an inbox. Okay, so all the inbox, it's basically a column for the different channels or the different inboxes, and on the right, the column with the different messages, right? Actually, the social feed, I mean, if you look at Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, they all rely on a 3-column layout. I don't know if you noticed, they all have the same structure. And of course, inside each column, there are some white cards with different information. But the social feed is always structured this way. You've got on the first column, you have some information about the user, right? Some statistics, some trends. The main feed column in the middle. And on the right, it depends, but some suggested or ads column. It's the same on Facebook. It's the same on LinkedIn. It's a 3-column layout. What other example? Actually, all these software as a service applications. So if you look at Slack, Mixpanel, Intercom, you name it, Stripe, okay, they all have this kind of also different navigation level. So here on Slack, you can select the board, okay, your board on the left. Then inside the board, you have a second column where you can select the channel on which you want to discuss. Then you have the main column where you've got the chat messages for this channel. And then on the right, so here it's more like the files that you upload with your team or something like that. Okay, so if you look, do you know eFounders, the startup studio? It's a startup studio from Belgium. And you look at all their products, you will see they all have the same column layouts.
What's the name?
eFounders. E like E, founders like founders. Yeah, eFounders. And all their products, they have this kind of SaaS software. It's a startup studio that do lots of SaaS platform. So they did a front application, a Mention, Mailjet, and they all have this kind of structure. Okay. All right. So we've seen examples of row layouts, examples of column layouts. And actually, there are some examples where it's neither only rows nor only columns. It's a bit a mix of the two, right? So here, if you look at this page, well, if you look at the blue box, it's taking 2 columns. But if you look at the purple box, it's taking 2 rows. So we can't say it's only column, and we can't say it's only rows. It's a bit of the 2 worlds, basically. And in this case, well, it's what I call a grid layout. And what are the examples you can find? It's not easy. This one is not easy. Well, actually, I tried to look at some examples. I discovered that the newspaper, they use this kind of layouts a lot. That's something I discovered, I didn't know, but The Economist, Financial Times, they have some news, and they want to put the focus on some news. So this is from The Economist, and you see the main news is taking 3 columns, 1 row. Then you have 3 little news at the bottom of the page, and you have a kind of update section that takes the 2 rows and 1 column on the right. So it's kind of a grid layouts. And another more obvious example is all the analytics dashboards. Okay? They always have this kind of statistics, and most of the time they present that in a grid, okay? In something where you have some sections that are merging rows, some sections merging columns. So here it's an example. I don't know what is this website. I just picked that from Dribble. So do you have a good vision about the different kind of layouts and examples? So I don't have a designer background, so that's my vision of the different categories of layout. But maybe if you discuss with other designers, they will have a different categories in mind. Okay, it's just my personal way of classifying, let's say, the different layouts. Okay, so if we have that in mind, now we can start to suffer a bit and to code some stuff. So let's start to code the simple ones, because the raw layout is for me the simplest layouts we can code. And I will take the example of this blog post. Okay, so I think we can code that maybe in 10 minutes. We have to code this blog post layout. So for that, the only things to understand is when you have some raw layout with a scrollable navigation, like a page on which you can scroll, it's really important that your content is not full screen. Okay, because a full screen content, it's terrible, it's ugly. No one wants a website with the content that is full page. So when you have some raw layouts with different sections, one after the other, you have to use what we call in front-end development a container. Okay, container is just a div with a fixed width and which is centered with some space on the left and on the right, and that allows you to center your content. And what is cool with the container is if you reuse the same container on your page, what is the interest? What is the good thing with that? What's the point of using here the same container? You see the two red containers here? It's the same CSS class. So what's the point of this? Yeah, they have the same behavior, the same size, and maybe the same responsive behavior. So it means the different content of the different section will be aligned, basically. Okay, I know it's straightforward. It's not rocket science, but that's how you build. That's for me the most important thing to understand when you build such layouts. Like you have to use container, otherwise your content is not aligned and is not centered, and no one wants to read the blog post with full screen content. Okay? So the only thing to keep in mind, we have to use container. So what is the structure of this page? Well, it's a structure for newbies, right? It's just I just give you the HTML. It's a banner for holding the background image. Inside the banner, we've got the container for centering the content. Okay? And then after the banner section, we have another container to center the content of the blog post. Everyone has this structure in mind when you look at this page? Yeah? One banner with the background image, inside the red container to center the content, and then below the banner, another container to center the page content, the blog post content. Okay? So let's code that. So what will be the code for the container? So you know this technique is, I think, one of the first techniques you learn when we start CSS. It's a technique to center some content. So instead of trying to compute yourself the margin on the left and the margin on the right, you set the width. You say, I want you to be 900 pixel width, and then you put an automatic margin on the left and on the right. So it's a way to center a div by just giving it a width. It's a really popular technique of centering. Okay, so that's a simple container. And we will see in the live code that sometimes you want some responsive behavior for your container. So basically, you want a container that will have a different size on a big screen, on a mobile, on a tablet. Okay? And for that, we will use media queries. So media queries in CSS is a way to have different CSS code that will apply depending on the size of the screen. Okay? It can be other condition, but one popular condition is the size of the screen. So I will always give you a lot of theory, but then we redo that with the live code, right? So it's normal if you will be a bit overwhelmed. So actually, let's code it now that we have that in mind. So for now, what is my page? It's terrible. What is it? It's just there is nothing, right? It's just the text, the H1, P, H2, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if I look at it in my browser, it doesn't look like the final results. So now, our turn to code it. So do you remember the layout, the structure? What is it? So we start after the navbar, and we have the first section, which is called before the container. We need something to hold the background image before the container. OK, so we'll put a banner to have the full screen background image, right? And inside, we'll have the one that is responsible to center the content, which is the container, right? OK, and I will put this content here, OK, the title of the blog post and the paragraph inside this container. Then my banner is done, and another section, another row, if you want, another section of my page will be the same, basically, the same container with the same behavior. And inside this container, I will inject my blog post content. This is the layout. This is the structure of my page. OK? OK with the HTML, because after we move to the CSS. So we have to get the HTML right. So I will code my CSS in the blog post.css here. So let's start maybe with the banner. OK? It's a graphical part, so we can code it quickly. So what's the CSS for the banner? What is the responsibility of the banner? So a div is always 100% by default. So we need the background image, right? The banner has the background image with Berlin. So how do you do that with CSS? Background image, and then you give the URL of the image. So here I'm inside this layout folder. So first I need to go back to the CSS folder, step to the parent one, which is the main folder, and then go to images and find the Berlin dot, how is it called? It's called Berlin.jpg. OK. So when you have a background image, it's common to say background size. Do you know the property to make it cover the div? It's called background size cover. You want the image to cover all the banner. And so for that, you say background size cover. And if you want to center the image on the div, you've got another background position called another background property called background position center. OK? You center the image on your banner. So let's have a look. So for the moment, it's like that. What's missing? Some padding. So let's put some padding, maybe just, I don't know, like 70 pixel top, bottom, and 0 pixel left and right. OK? And also, what's missing in the color of the text, it could be, OK, let's say we want white text. But then we don't see really, because the image is really contrasted. So here I give you another CSS trick. We want to kind of filter a bit transparent on top of the background image, just to put some contrast. Because here we can't see the text, because the image is too contrasted, right? So for that, you can, before the URL here, say, I want to put a linear gradient. And here I show you a trick. I want a filter which is a bit the same color as the image. Okay? It will be nice. So I will take my color picker, and I will choose exactly the color on the top right corner of my image. And I will start from here. And I will say, OK, I want a gradient. And RGBA, it allows you to have some transparency at the last parameter. So I can say maybe 0.5, OK? It's half transparent. And like that, I have a kind of filter, a bit transparent, which is exactly the same color as the image, OK? Which is nice, because it doesn't really create some weird colors with two filters of different colors. OK, so I've got my banner. Now, what's the other part I need to design? The one responsible for centering the content is the container. That's the important one. So let's do the dumb container, OK, the stupid one. So you remember how we do that? We select the container, and we say width, let's say 900 pixels, and then we we say margin, and we say, okay, nothing on top and bottom, and on left and right, automatic, okay? You compute yourself. I just give you the width, and you compute the left and right margin. Okay? And so here, as I use the same container for inside the banner and below, they are exactly aligned, the content inside the banner and the content in my blog post. But you agree with me that this container is a bit bad because if I resize, well, it's not really good, right? So here we can introduce media queries. So we say, I never remember the breakpoints, okay? You have some dimensions for mobile. So I think laptop is 992, iPad is 768, and mobile is 480. You remember that? Because I won't. I will need you. 992, 76, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's try. So I say, basically, if I'm below, which was the first one, if I'm below 992 pixel, maybe I want to select my container and give it a different size, right? I want maybe to put, I don't know, 750 pixel. Okay? Then I can do the same for different size. If I'm below 768, maybe I want to be only 500 pixel. And then if I'm on a mobile device, that means a mobile it's less than 480. Yeah? Well, on a mobile, I want my container to be maybe 350 pixels, okay? And doing so, it's like an if, it's like a condition. Here I'm above 992. If I get below, look here, you see? I get below 992, and that's the new property that will apply. It's resized to 700, or I don't remember, 992. Yeah, it's resized to 750 pixels. If I continue and I get below, which one is the next breakpoint? What is the next one, the next breakpoint? It's 768. So if I get below here, look, 768, then the next width will be this one. And if I continue and I go below 480 on a mobile, I don't have too much space on the left and the right. Okay, I have a nice display on mobile. Okay, that's basically how you build a responsive container. And if you guys have used some libraries like Twitter Bootstrap, you know Twitter Bootstrap, they have coded their own container, and it's exactly that. It's a container class with some responsive behavior. Is it clear? Yes. Be prepared because it is the simplest example of tonight. Then it will be more and more complicated. Okay, so if it's clear, we can move on to more interesting stuff. So, okay, row layouts is done, okay? We know, we get it. Container and section, one after the other. Now, it's more interesting. Let's start to build some column layouts. And here it will be, I will introduce new CSS techniques. So column layouts, for me, it's one of the most interesting pattern because it's nearly, I mean, like it's 90, I don't know, this is a fake number, right? This is my number. But let's say it's nearly all, like lots of layouts are based on columns. Lots of them. There are lots of real life examples. So, actually, it was not really easy to do a while ago, but now, with the new Flexbox properties, okay, we have new CSS properties called Flexbox. And with these CSS properties, it has become really easy to build column layouts. But to do so, we need some very basic knowledge of Flexbox. Okay? It's a new CSS bunch of properties. So be with me. I will just give you the essential information about Flexbox. So when you have a div, okay, let's say a yellow div, you can make it a Flexbox. I give you just the vocabulary. When a div is a Flexbox, the children of the div inside will speak about the flex items. Okay, so I will always speak about the Flexbox, which is the main section, and the elements inside, I will call them the flex items. So far, so good? Okay, so how do we make something a Flexbox? Well, it's easy. We just say display flex. Okay, on the yellow box, I say display flex, and it becomes a Flexbox. So what happens if I do that? Naturally, that's how like Flexbox is designed. Naturally, the items inside will be placed by column. Okay, it's a natural behavior of Flexbox. So that's why it's useful for columns, because I just put display flex, and everything is placed by column. And from there, I can start to move a bit the items. So first, I can start to distribute the space either around or between the items, okay? And for that, you have the property which is called justify content. So if I say on the Flexbox, justify content space around, it's basically distributing the space around the Flexbox, around the Flex items. You see? We have the same space around each item. If I say justify content space between, it's not around them, but it's between them. So what happens on the first and the last one? Yeah, the first one is sticking to the beginning of the Flexbox, and the last one is sticking to the end, because it's between but not around them. Okay? So with justify content, we can try to distribute the space, first thing. Now, there is another property called align items, and with this property on the Flexbox, you can vertically center all the items, even if they have a different height, which is really cool, because that was really hard to do in CSS back in the day. If you have items with different heights, and you want that they are centered, okay, vertically, it's really hard to do. And just align item center, and boom, that's it. Now let's dig a bit deeper into Flexbox. Sometimes we want to have to customize the behavior of an item inside the Flexbox. So first, let's say I want to take the two ones at the beginning and at the end, and I want to set the width, okay, to fix the width of them. I can do that like this. I select them, and I say, okay, flex. I give their flex behavior, and I will try to translate the CSS into English. That's an exercise of translation. Here I say, okay, my blue items, I want you to be 0, 0, 25%. So what does it mean? It say you cannot grow, okay? You cannot grow and take more space, 0. You cannot shrink and take less space, 0. And I want you to be exactly 25% of the Flexbox. Okay? The first two parameters is, can I grow? Can I shrink? And what's my reference size? That's how you have to read that. So here if you say you cannot grow, 0, you cannot shrink, and I want you to be fixed to 25%.
For all items?
No, I just select the blue ones. First and last, look.
He has this class.
Yeah, exactly. I just put the same color so that we understand. So I just select the first and the last, okay. And I set their width. So at the end, they all take 1/4, okay, 25% of the Flexbox. So that's the first technique. If you kill the grow and the shrink, you can set a fixed width on the item. Another technique which is really useful, let's say I want to take the middle one. You see the middle one? For the moment, I don't specify the behavior. And I want it to grow, to take all the space available. I can do that with flex grow 1. Okay, if I say flex grow 0, I say you cannot grow. If I say flex grow 1, I'm saying you can take all the space available. You can grow. Okay, is it clear? So we have 3 parameters. Flex grow, basically, I know you can put value like 2, 3, but for me it's a Boolean. It's 0, you cannot grow, or take the space. I see that like that, okay? So this one means don't grow, don't shrink, take 25%. And the red one is, okay, take the space, grow, okay? And for me, it's sufficient to know that to make lots of design. Okay, I know it's a lot of things, but you have the video to rewatch. Now we are going to apply this to the live code. The last thing that we will use to build, on Airbnb, they have a grid of apartments. So you have a useful property called flex wrap. And if you put the value wrap, it means like if there is not enough space for an item, it will go on the next line. Okay, we will use this property for building the grid of apartments. Okay, so that's all we need to know to make the live code. So let's try to apply that to build this layout, our first column layout. So I give you my technique. The first thing, we don't have to rush. We have to take our time. Okay, a layout is complicated. It's the structure of your website. You don't want to rush on this. So first, you have to identify the main Flexbox of your page. So here, the main Flexbox is the red one. Okay, the red one, and it has 2 items, 2 flex items. An item for the results. Okay, the first one on the left, and an item for the map. So I don't try to put the grid of cards. I just focus on the main Flexbox. So it's a 2 items Flexbox. Okay? To your opinion, which one is fixed width and which one is growing? Which item is growing and which item is with a fixed width?
Map is fixed.
Yeah, so we can decide to change, but I decided to fix the map and to make the result grow. Okay? You can decide another design, but that's my design. So that's the second question. What is my main Flexbox? And then what do I fix? What do I make? What item will grow, basically? Okay? So I decide to make my results grow and to fix my map. Okay? And then that's for the Flexbox part. We will need to also other techniques for this design. Basically, we will set the height of the map to 100 VH. Do you know the VH unit? So 1 VH, it means 1% of the height of the window. Okay, so if you say 100 VH, you say basically exactly the height of my window. Exactly. So that's really convenient. So if we set the map to be exactly the size of the window, then we can have a nice effect by using a position sticky CSS property. Because when we will scroll, the map will stick at the top, and as it takes exactly the height of the window, well, it will be nice. Okay, we'll see that. Okay, let's start this design. So I show you for the moment what I have on my map page. Try to describe that with me. I have some cards for cities, and I have my map, my Google Maps here. Okay? And we have to build the layout of this page. So let's look at the existing HTML. So if I go to this one, what do we have here? Let's try to describe the code with me. We've got the navigation bar. Here, what do we have? The city cards, okay? So it's just some class card with some background image, different Rio, Berlin, Shanghai. And on this, actually, I just put a bit of CSS, okay? But this CSS is just background size cover, I don't know, some color, some font size. There is nothing fancy. It's just a full width div with the background image, okay? Nothing fancy on these city cards. And if I finish my HTML, sorry, this is not this one. So I've got my navbar here, my 4 full page city cards here, and here what do I have? My map, and here I just have the Google Maps script to load the map into this div, okay? That's the code that Google gives me to put the map. That's the starting point. Now, our turn to build the layout. Okay? So you remember the main, so it's below the navbar. There is the main Flexbox. So how do we call it? Give me some, let's see if you have some intuition for naming.
Container.
Yeah, let's call it maybe not container because we already have a container class. Maybe main container, that's fine with you? Okay, let's call it main container. And inside we have how many flex items? 2. One for the results, one for the map. Okay, so let's call it, I don't know, cards container, the one for the cards. Okay? In this part, I will inject here my cards. Okay? And after my first, so this is my first flex item, and my second one, I can directly put the map here. Okay? That's my 2 items, the cards container and my 2 columns. Okay? And now we can start. We have done the most difficult part. In layouts, if you have the HTML, the CSS is the easy part. So let's do the CSS. So how do I select the main Flexbox? It's called main container. How do I make it a Flexbox? You remember? Display, flex. And naturally, it will be a column layout because that's how it works with Flexbox. How do I select the results one? Sorry, the cards, it's called cards. Is the first column. Is it fixed or is it growing? So flex grow 0 or 1? 1. See that as a Boolean. I like to see that as a Boolean, okay? Either it's 0, you can't grow, or it's 1, you can grow. Yeah.
What happens if you add 2 or 3 or 4?
It's if you just have one item with a flex grow, it doesn't change. It's if you have several with a flex grow, it gives the proportion of space they take. So if one is 2, one is 1, one will take 2/3 of the space, 1/3 of the space. But you rarely use this. It's like kind of advanced. But yeah, if you just have one item growing, 2 or 1 is the same. It's just taking all the space. Okay, so this one is fixed. And actually, the other one, it's already there. It's called the map. How do I set the width of the map? You remember in Flexbox? Flex. So we say basically, don't grow, don't shrink, and take whatever. Let's say 300 pixels. Okay? It's just random value just to test. All right? What's the height of my map? I mean, here it's 200 pixels, but with my layout, what do I want? Yeah, I want it to be full exactly the height of my window. Independently on a small window, big window, I want it to be exactly the size of my window.
So you always put 100?
So I will show you. It depends on your layout. So maybe 300 is not, I don't know, maybe put 400. Okay, so let's look together what happens here. If I scroll, okay, I don't have enough city to scroll. Sorry, let me add a bunch of cities. So let's take these 4 cities and duplicate them like that. Okay, I'm cheating a bit. So here, look at my map. It's exactly, look, you see, it's exactly the size of my window, 100 VH. That's why I use these units. And what will be a good design? If I scroll, what do I want? Yeah, to stick it, because here it's not sticking, it's just like that, right? And so for that, I can say it's a kind of fancy CSS property called position sticky. And you say top 0 is basically when you reach 0 pixel, you stick to the top of the page, okay? And actually, I would need, I will explain why I do that, or maybe you know. So here it's sticking, okay? When it reaches the top of the page, it sticks out, okay? And as it's full screen, it's this kind of nice design. Why do I put important here? Do you know? Because the JavaScript of Google Maps is injecting some positioning CSS. And I want to override this. And as it's injected into the HTML, I need to put important to be overriding this CSS. Not too bad. Look at the line of code. It's, I don't know, like it's 12 lines of CSS to build this design. So now what do we need to do on the left part? To build a kind of grid, okay? And for that, again, let's use Flexbox. And the Flex wrap, you remember Flex wrap? So now it's a new Flexbox. What is my new Flexbox? It's the cards container, okay? I know it's a flex item of the main one, but it's also a Flexbox itself. So how do I make it a Flexbox? It's this one, I say. Okay, so of course it's the flex item of the main one, but it's also a Flexbox with all the cards inside. And I want that the inside cards will go to the next line if there is not enough space. And how do I set the... And let's say I want to justify my cards. How do you want to justify the space between your cards? Around or between? Well, yeah, actually I think that will be a bit the same, but let's try the one you want. You prefer space between? Okay. And now the only thing I need, so what are the flex items of this Flexbox? Okay, I give you 10 seconds. What are the items of this Flexbox, the card container Flexbox. Yeah, the card, right? This one. And so if I want to set the width to 30%, what do I do on this card? Flex. Okay? 0, 0, 30%. So if I do that, I have this. And what is cool is, again, it's not responsive for now, okay? So we'll do the same. So I will cheat. I will just take the same code as for the blog post, just to have the media query. And where it's there. And here I want to change the flex behavior of my card, okay? So let's say, I don't know, it will be 50% if I'm on a laptop, okay? And maybe below the iPad, I will be 100%, okay? And let's forget about it. It will remain that even on a mobile, okay? It's a 100% below that. So if I do that, if I get below 960 blah, 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 it's 50%, and then it's, why it's like that? Okay, it's not working that much. Why doing that? Maybe it's because of the margin I put. Ah, yeah. Why? Because I'm stupid. Because it's not width. It's called. Okay, I'm really stupid. It's not a width. It's a flex property I want to override. Okay, so it's flex, and here it's flex. It's not a container. It's a flex item. Okay. So 100, 50, and okay, 30%. Okay, so that's not a robust responsive grid. It's just for you to understand that building a grid of cards with Flexbox is not that complicated. Of course, it will require a bit more code to make it robust. Okay. Do you have some question about this layout? So the cool thing with position sticky, just to show you, you don't have the scroll bar on this part. You can scroll on all the page, basically. Okay, I can scroll even if my mouse is hovering the map. I can still scroll basically on the page. I don't have to go there and scroll there, basically. I can scroll wherever I am on the page. Okay. So position sticky, and for the grid of cards here, we use flex wrap. That's what we've done. So that's it. Now, let's try to do another example of a column layout. So you all know Slack. It's a chat app. And basically, our role will be to design a clone of Slack in maybe 15 minutes. Okay? That's our mission. So I won't do exactly Slack. Okay? It will take a bit more than 15 minutes. Let's say a baby version of a Slack. And again, let's start to see what we have as a boilerplate. So I call it software as a service, because for me it's kind of a software as a service layout. And for the moment, well, it's like that. It doesn't really look like Slack, right? It's just a list of channels, but just a list of text, an image, a header, a paragraph of text, an image, a header, a paragraph of text, and here a bunch of font awesome icons with text. Okay, so raw text that we need to structure. Okay. You ready? You want to breathe a bit? So let's go. So let's start again with the HTML. So now that we've seen the result, we just want to inspect the code. So it's in this file. So try to comment that with me. It's exactly the same that we've just seen on the page. We have it's the part where you speak a bit because I need to drink water. So it's a it's a list, and each list item is a small font awesome icon, okay? Just to model if it's a private channel or a public channel, and the name of the channel. Berlin, staff, marketing. Okay? What do we have here? Yeah, we got a message. So for the moment, I didn't code the design of the message. So it's just an image, an H3 with the name of the username and the time of the message, and the text of the message. Okay? I just put 2 examples of message. And here I just put a div with a file class. And inside, what do we have? This is the Fontosum icon for a PDF file or a coding file. Yeah.
What is that
I? The tag?
Yes.
So this tag is for italic, but we are using a library called Fontosum, which is loaded here. And this gives you class that you can put on an I tag, and that's a way to have a font of icon. It's a font. So it's like a text, it's like a font, but instead of an A, you've got a Facebook icon. Instead of a B, you've got, I don't know, a Twitter icon. Instead of a C, you got...
It doesn't put anything in italic.
No, it's just that they implemented the library on the I tag.
It's a tweak.
It's just they decided to implement it like that. They could have decided to implement that on a span, but it just decided to implement that on the I. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So, again, let's do a bit the work of layout. So what's the main Flexbox? Well, it's actually the whole container. How many columns? How many flex items?
3.
Okay, 3. So my whole page is basically my Flexbox with 3 columns. Which one is fixed? Which one is growing? The channel is fixed. Maybe the file upload is fixed and the messages is growing. Okay? So that's my choice. I decide to fix these 2 ones and make the middle one grow. Okay, so let's code this design. So you tell me, what do I need to put? Yeah. Inside, what are the different columns? How do you call the first one? Yeah, or let's call it sidebar. It can be channel bar. Okay? And inside this sidebar, I will inject my list of channels. Okay? First column. What's the second one? Okay, messages. And inside, okay, maybe we'll have to structure the message because the HTML of the message is not structured for the moment. For the moment, let's put the message like that. And what's the last part? So let's call it files plural. So I call messages plural and files plural, okay? It will be more convenient in the CSS. And inside my third column, I inject my different div for each file. Okay? So I won't do the responsiveness of this layout, okay? It's a homework for you. We'll do the basic, but an app is not supposed to be, okay, let's say it's for web usage. So, you see, for the moment, my CSS is very advanced. It's an avatar. I just have one class to set the width and the radius for this guy, the avatar. Okay? The only CSS I have is on the avatar for now. Now we have to code all the rest. So where do I start? So what is the Flexbox? It's the main container. Sorry. So I say display flex, and it becomes a Flexbox. Right? What is the fixed item? It's called sidebar. And files. And let's say this. How do I set the width of this one? Flex 0, 0. Okay. Okay, I would just put fixer because I'm tired with the percentage. And this one, let's say it's 0, 0 and whatever. And the one in the middle is called messages. And how do I make it grow? Flex grow 1. Okay? So let's see. So it's a start. Okay? And actually, okay, I think it was not, there was some caching. So 200 pixels, 400 pixels on the left, and the remaining in the middle. So we've done the hardest part. We've done the layout part. Now it's just like playing fancy with the CSS rules. So let's make the fancy part. Okay, I don't know if I have a Slack open. I will cheat and open Slack to clone it, right? I hope it's not a sensible channel. Let's try to find. So. Maybe let's go on the. So we don't have the main navigation for switching the board. Okay, we just do the channel navigation if it's loading. Come on, Slack, wake up. It's called shadow loading. It's pretending to put the structure of the page, but it's just an image. Okay. So, nothing sensible. It's just a drink at a bar, whatever. So here we don't care about this part. Okay, we don't have this part in the layout. We just want this part, and the channel. Let's try to analyze a bit the design. Okay, we have this kind of slack purple for the background of the sidebar. What size is the sidebar? 100 VH, full screen. The color of this is white with a small opacity on the icon. Okay? Yeah? Okay, so let's do it. So I will steal the color here because I'm a copycatter. Okay, so sidebar, background, and Slack color. What else? What's the height? 100 VH. What's the color? White. How do I select the list inside the sidebar? Sidebar, okay? Descendant selector. I select the list inside the sidebar. So I will just kill the bullet points. Kill the padding left, because there is a natural padding left on a list. That's how it's designed by default. And I will put some margin top. Let's say my margin top on my list, it's 30 pixels. How do I select the list items? Sidebar LI. And let's say I want some padding, so just top bottom, maybe 10 pixels. And 25 pixels right and left. Okay? So let's try to see. If I refresh, I've got something like that. How do I design my list item? So maybe let's put a font weight bold on my list items. And let's select also the font awesome. You remember font awesome, the icon is on the I tag. So I can select the I and put an opacity of 0.5 just to contrast the icon with the text. Okay? And if we do that, it's just putting some contrast, okay, between the icon and the text. And also, actually, I think the icons, they don't have the same width, so maybe I can set the width of the icon to 15 pixels, or just to have some alignment, okay, of the channels. So that is my channels. What do we do next? Let's do the message. So for the message, there is a bit more work because for the moment, we don't have any box for the message, okay? It's just image, H3, and paragraph of text. We need to put some div around. Okay, basically, you've got the icon here on the left, and then on the right, you have the name, the username with the time, and below, you have the text. So actually, we'll design the message, each message as a flexbox. First item will be the avatar. Second item will be the name and message. Okay? So, let me take this one. So how do I call it? So this is messages. So each message will be message. First flex item will be the avatar. And second, let's call it message body, containing the username and the text of the message. Okay? So each message is a flex box with one item which is the image and one item which is name and description. Okay? If you want. And I just want the exact same structure for the second one. We put the image as the first flex item, and we take username and message inside the second flex item. Okay, now let's code it. So it's called, my message is called message, okay? And this is a flex box, so display flex. And let's make some quick design. So if I select in the message body, the right column, if I select the H3, maybe I just want it to be smaller because it's a big H3. I just want to make it font size 15 pixels. And also, bless you. Here you see around the time I've got a span here. Okay, so maybe I can just select the span and give it an opacity. Same technique, okay? Just put some transparency and maybe also some contrast on the font weight. So just some light font weight to contrast with the username. So let's see. So for the moment it's like that. Not too bad, but actually, I've got some margin top on my paragraph of text here. I want it to stick to the top. So maybe I will also select my paragraph of text, this one, and kill the margin top, okay, to align that at the top of the. Why is it like that? It should not, sorry, it's not a P, it's a H3, right? So it's on my H3 that I want to kill the margin top. So let's refresh. Okay, and what's remaining is this text is a bit too big. So I will select it. This time it's a P, okay? It's not an H3. So this time I can select the P, cut the margin top, cut the margin top, and also put a font size which is more a message font size, like, I don't know. Okay, let's put also 15 pixels. All right, and last thing we need to do, maybe, if I take all the message body here, I can just put some padding left. Okay, so it's a bit spaced from the image. So on the message body, hop, some padding on the left. And finally, maybe it needs to breathe a bit, right? The messages are all sticking one to each other. So maybe put some margin on the message div. And let's say it's 30 pixel top bottom and, well, let's say 30 pixel everywhere, just for a try. OK. And I don't know. Maybe it's because of this one. OK. Maybe I can kill the margin top bottom of the H3 as well. OK, it's a bit too spaced. So actually, I will also kill or put it, I don't know how much, but let's try to kill it, the margin bottom of my header. OK. And it does look like a Slack message, a bit. The final part, the right part. So maybe let's cheat and do a simple version. So more something like that. OK? So I'll just cheat and take the color. What the hell? OK. It's a kind of a light gray. And if we analyze, let's describe the design together. I don't know if it's really clear, but we have a font awesome icon that is big and different colors, depending if it's a PDF or video. On the file div, there is a light border with some border radius, okay, a light border for each file. And the font weight is bold and small for the name of the file. Everyone has that in mind, so let's try to reproduce this. So, how is it called the right part? It's called files. It's this one, right? So this one, first, starting with the background, the light gray background. What's the size? The height, sorry. Exactly, 100 VH. And that's it. Now let's design the file. So maybe before the file, let's design the H2. There is the main there is a title on the section, right? So it's in files, H2, and I will just put some, I don't know, font size of 20 pixels, and maybe, I don't know, some margin of 30 pixels because it's 30 pixels on the other ones, and 20 pixels. Actually, I don't have a title. I was a bit dreaming, but maybe put a title, maybe all files, okay? There is no title for the moment. I just delete that. So maybe before the files here, I put a title, H2, all files, okay? Because if there is no title, the user does not understand. Okay, so I've got my title, and now I need to design my file box, okay? My file boxes. So again, I can make it a Flexbox, right? One item is the icon, the other item is the name of the file. So here we go. What is the class name? Dot. Ah, yeah, sorry. So the test, it's called file. Yeah. File. So how do I make it a Flexbox? Display flex. And let's benefit from that to put some margin. So let's say 10 pixel top bottom and 20 pixel. I want the same left margin than this one for the H2, right? And also let's put a border, so a small one. Border, 1 pixel of border, solid border, and let's put a light gray. So let's start with a black and put 0.1 of opacity, okay, to have a really light border. And also, I want to align the items of my Flexbox. So the align items, remember, it's not the horizontal space, it's the vertical space. So it's to center the icon with the text. It's the one we haven't really used. So you can say align item center, and let's try that. Okay. So it's like that. What can we do? Maybe some padding on the file, right? Because everything is sticking to the border. And now we need to design the icon. So maybe we can put different class, whether it's a video or a PDF, okay? Let's call it file PDF. And this one will be file code. Sorry, it's a coding file. Let's say it's Ruby. Let's say it's a Ruby file, actually. Ruby. And file PDF, okay? So how do I select? I can select the file. Okay, so all my icons, I want them to be big. So let's say font size 30 pixels. And maybe margin right 10 pixels. And how do I select only the icon inside my file video, PDF, sorry. I say that. I put the class file and an element which has both the class file and PDF. And inside, I select my icon, and I put a color red. Okay? And if I want to select my coding file, I can say file code. And inside, I select my I tag, and I make it blue. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Sorry?
You put Ruby?
Ah, yeah, yes, thank you. That's why it's not working. Thank you. But a nice buddy in the audience. Okay, So that's the shitty. Okay, maybe let's put a. Okay, well, it's not that bad. Let's put a nicer color. It's a bit small, but let's take this one for the blue. And well, the red is fine. And the last thing, well, if you want, you can put a bit of border radius here, okay? Just to soften the corner of the file. But what about if we have lots of message? So let's say instead of 2 messages, that's why we need templates. Instead of 2 messages, I've got lots of them. So look, so we could use sticky, but here I show you another way of doing. If we really want to scroll here, because maybe we want to be able to scroll differently in the different sections. So if we just want to scroll on the middle page, well, I show you how it works. You can say, so what's the main section? It's called messages. That's this one. You can say height, and you also set that to 100 VH, and you say what's overflowing on the y-axis, what's overflowing my page on the vertical axis. I want it to be scrollable. Okay? And if you do that, you can scroll here. But you can't scroll here or here because maybe you want to scroll differently on the right section with files. Okay, we've done the hard part. I hope it's still recording. What the? No problem with the video, guys? Okay, cool. Yeah, any question?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the sidebar, you put a Flexbox.
No, my sidebar is an item. Is the first.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
it's the file sidebar.
Okay, so each file here is a 2-item Flexbox with the file image.
I didn't see the item in the Flexbox. Maybe I.
Okay, so let me. Yeah. So if you isolate one message here, this one. This is the Flexbox.
I don't.
No, sorry, the files. This is the Flexbox. First item is the I. Second item is the text. You don't need. You can put a span if you want, but you don't need. Flexbox is really smart. You don't need to tag it, but yeah.
It's smarter than. Okay.
It's smarter than all of us. But yeah, it's basically here you have 2 items. First one here, and second one here. Yeah.
Why do you use Flex Row 1 instead of just making a width?
Because it depends. You can't fix really the width because it depends on the. It depends here a bit on the size of the. You basically want to fix the 2 other ones, and you want it to take all the remaining space. If you set a width, you don't know exactly what it will be. Okay, so actually it's pretty advanced, but you see with Flexbox, it's a really, if you just know how to fix the height and use this position sticky and overflow, you can really quickly build some column layouts. You still have a bit of energy? Okay, so we've seen row layouts, we've seen column layouts, and now we'll see grid layouts. And when I speak of grid, I don't speak about, we've just coded a grid, right? The grid of flats, you remember with FlexWrap? So here it's really advanced grid, because otherwise we can use Flexbox as well. So what I mean by advanced, sorry, let's go there. What I mean by grid layouts is we have at the same time some sections that takes different columns and subsections that takes different rows. Okay, it's a mix of the two. And basically, the natural way of doing column layout is Flexbox. The natural way of doing grid layouts is using CSS grid. That's also new CSS properties. And I find it more easier than Flexbox actually.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you will see.
And
So
and more supported.
you can go to on caniuse.com, but yeah, I don't guarantee that everything is supported on really old stuff. You need to check that. So first, this is the 101 of FlexGrid. So remember, how do you make an item, how do you make a div a flexbox? You say display flex. How do you make something a grid? You say display grid. So far, so good. And the first step is to define the different columns and the different rows of your grid, okay? It's the first step. And you do that with grid template columns and grid template rows. So let's try to translate that into English. Here I say, my columns, I got 4 columns. You see the code here? The first one is taking, look at the code. I've got 4 columns. The first one is taking 400 pixels. And then I've got 3 columns that each take 1 fraction of what remains. Okay? And on the other axis, how many rows do you have on this grid? 3 rows. The first one takes 50% of the height, and the 2 other rows take 25% of the height. Okay, so it's an example to mix pixel, fractions, and percentage. Just for you to understand that you can mix all the configuration possible, basically. Yeah?
If you put for columns 0,
0?
you can use it as row.
Yeah, but it's a bit, like, if it's just row, you can could put some basic div, and div, they will be positioned as rows. You know, like the first blog post we did, you don't need this kind of advanced stuff if you just to have some blog post layout. You just put div, and it's working. All right, so first step is to define the grid and the different columns and the different rows of the grid. And then you will see it's really cool because you can select any element in the grid and decide how much column it takes, how much rows it takes, where it's positioned. So I give you a first example. Here I select the purple element and I try to translate the code in English. I say basically this element, it starts at the first row and it takes how many rows? 2. No.
A row.
Yeah, it starts at the first rows and it takes 1 row only, right? And this element, it starts at which column? The first column, and it takes, no, it takes 2 columns. Okay, let's do it again. This element, it starts at the first rows and it takes 1 row, and it starts at the first column and it takes 2 columns. And so you can, in CSS, if we translate, it's a grid row 1 span 1, green column, start at 1, take 2 columns. Okay? Another example. I put a red one. So this one, don't look at the code, just look at the grid. It starts at which row?
1.
First row, and it takes how many rows?
3.
3. Yeah? It starts at first row, and it takes 3 rows. It starts at which column?
2.
No, 1, 2, 3. It starts at the third column, and it takes how many columns?
1.
No. It takes how many columns? 1 column. Okay? Start at first row, take 3 rows. Start at third column, take 1 column. It's a gymnastic, but you'll get it, right? It's where do you start and how many rows or columns do you take, basically. So basically, doing that, you can position stuff wherever you want in the grid. And also, what is cool, you can have a media query, redesigning all the grid on the tablet. You can shuffle things. The order in the HTML doesn't matter anymore. You're free to redesign the grid the way you want on the tablet. Say that this one, it will be, I don't know, like it will start at the 5th row and takes whatever. So you can really redefine the grid as you want on any device. Is it clear? If it's clear, we'll code this one. So sorry, I didn't have time to find a real-life example. It's just the profile of my CTO, but it will do the job. So again, let's code this one. Again, I show you where my starting points. So my starting point is called dashboard.html, and if we open that, that's the final live code. After we can have a beer. So if we go to dashboard.html, for now, look, what do we have? We have actually, you recognize the behavior here? So what do we have, to your opinion? What's the stuff to center content that we saw at the beginning? Container? Yeah, we have a container, right? You see that it has some width behavior. So we have a container, and inside we have some basic div. One for the profile, one for some statistics, and one for the description, the footer. Okay? So it's just some white cards inside the center container. Going back to the HTML, let's verify that. We have a container here, and inside, what do we have? We have some, actually, I just put the code, okay, sorry, I put the code of the grid. I should not have. Close the eyes for 10 seconds. Okay, give me just 1 minute. Let's go back here, okay. So I've got a container, and inside my container, I've got my white cards, okay? They are called dashboard cards, and I just put some different class to be able to design them differently in the grid. The first one is main, the 3 statistics they call stat, and the final one called description. Okay? If we go to the CSS, there is a bit of CSS, but actually it's just to design the white cards. Okay? You see like there is some design here, green button, green text, box shadow. So I don't want to cut that. I just have the design of white cards to start. But all the rest is for us to build. So let's start to create the grid. So inside my container, here I can inject my grid and I will call it dashboard. That's my grid. And my grid elements will be, my grid items will be these dashboard cards. Okay? The grid is dashboard, and the dashboard cards are the element of my grid. So what's the first step is to define the grid. So you remember? Yeah, I say display grid to make it a grid. How do I define the different columns? Grid, templates. Oh, let's start with the rows, sorry. The rows. So in the objective, how many rows do we have? That's my objective. 2. And they take each how many percentage of the... Okay, they are same size, right? Let's analyze. There are 2 rows, and each of them takes half of the grid. And how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe the first, I don't know, maybe the first one is set to 300 pixels, let's say. And the other one, they are equal. Same, one fraction. Okay, so let's design this grid. So, grid template rows, 50, 50. And grid template columns. First one, let's say 300, and then one fraction of what remains. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm a bit tired. Yeah, one fraction. I think that, I don't remember the keyword. You can look at Flex CSS grid documentation, but I think you can do something like that. But imagine you have a grid with 100 fraction. You don't want to write one fraction, one fraction, one fraction. So I think you have something like that. But for now, I will stick to the stupid syntax. Okay. What's the height? Good question. What's the height of my grid? It's a 1 beer question. If you find, you win a beer. So what's above here? We've got the navigation bar. Yes. So what's the size? And let's say this navigation bar is 70 pixels. What's the height of my grid? We've got a winner of the beer contest. 100 VH minus 70 pixels. We've got the CSS genius in the class. Okay, so, and you can do that with calc. Okay, calc, 100 VH. And I just show you that my navbar actually, where is it? It's there. My navbar is height 70 pixels, okay? It's a 70 pixel navbar. So I can say calc minus 100 VH minus 70 pixels. Okay? Let's finalize the grid. So remember, I've got the main section. I've got and I've got the description section. That's the one that are a bit tricky. So what's the main section? You remember it's called grid row, and here we say where it starts, how many rows it takes. So main section, you see which one I'm speaking about, is the one with the picture. Yeah?
Don't you need to define a width for the whole grid?
I think it will be 100% by default, but we can adjust. I think it will act like a div, take all the space. So what's the behavior of this one? Where it starts at row, so let's do it. It starts at row 1 and it takes 2 rows. So grid row 1, span 2, and it starts at column 1 and it takes 1 column. So it will be grid column 1, span 1. Okay, let's do the same for the description. So description is this one. It's a bit, okay, so let's take our time. It starts at row 2 and it takes, no, row, it starts at row 2 and it takes 1 row only, okay? And it starts at column 2 and it takes 3 columns, okay, you got it. So it starts at row 2 and it takes 1 row. It starts at column 2 and it takes 3 columns. All right. So what is nice? Let's say we want some media query here. Okay? So I will cheat. I will just implement one media query. Which one? I'm just implementing maybe the laptop media query, this one. All right, so I start with a stupid media query. Below 992, you are not a Flexbox. No, sorry, you are not a grid anymore. You go back to a block element, a normal div without the grid behavior. So if we do that, look. I'm a grid, and below 992, I become back a normal stupid div. Okay? But you could decide to actually say, okay, below, let's make something weird. Below 992, my description, what can we say? My description, okay, my main one is 1 row span 1, okay? Start at 1 and take 1 row. And it's 1 column span 4. Okay? I'm trying something, I'm not sure it will work. I'm not even sure what I want to build actually. So let's say we want the full banner for the profile, and what else? And then below, I just want to show that you can customize really the grid on media query. And for the description, if you have an ID, it's now or never. Let's say, okay, you know what? Let's try to say what we want on the tablet. On the tablet, let's say we want the main one here, the description here, okay, something like that. So what would it be? Main 1 span 1, 1 span 2, and description 1 span 1, 3 span 2. I'm not sure about that. Let's try to test. Okay, but then I need just, so here I need to adjust a bit my design, but basically this one is taking the 2 first columns, this one the 2 last columns. Okay, I didn't think before about this design, but my point here, the message is, you can have a stupid responsive behavior, which is just, I take my grid, and I go back to display block. But if you want, and if you have better ID than I have now, you can also really override the responsive behavior of the grid, repositioning all the elements inside the way you want, basically. Okay? Any question on this? So just for you to understand the magic, the statistics here, they go in the same order as the HTML. I could select them and say, this one is 1 span 1, 2 span 1, 1 span 1, 3 span 1, and so on. But by default, if I don't say that, they will remain in the same order as in the HTML, and there will be 1, 1, 1, 1 by default. Okay? That's why I don't have to write all the code for these guys. but I could select them and also define their grid behavior, right? Okay, so that was the final live code. So just a recap about, we've covered a lot of different layout techniques, but it's good that you have this vision. There are basically 3 categories of layouts: layout by rows, layout by columns, and layout with grids. For rows, it's simple, plain div. The only thing is use container to center the content dynamically. It's important. That's the only thing to really know on a row layout. For column layouts, well, use Flexbox because it is really the best pattern you can use for this. You see, it's really powerful, and that's the column layout. It's 95% of the layouts you will build on an app, on a product. And for grid layouts, it's not that useful because dashboard is for analytics dashboard or really advanced page structure. But for that, the CSS grid is really straightforward. You define the grid, you define the elements inside, and that's it, basically. All right? Thank you very much.